Hey, we started it actually 2 shurim ago, so we'll start it now complete. You have it? So the difference between, as he says, Rav Chesed and Chesed Zute, great, unbounded, unfettered Chesed, Chesed Da'arich, and Chesed Zute, small Chesed, Zeir Anpin, small faces, which L'chura, of course, ostensibly, superficially, Katzilus, Tikkun, Zoh is lower than Arich, meaning that in Arich the revelation of Elikus is greater. Goes without saying, there's no higher, there's no lower. I mean, where God's revealed more or less. They are, I just saw a little clip of Rabbi Zusha Poizner, Allah Shalom. He says he likes to change the language from levels and beginners to matzovim, situations, perhaps a little more abstract. Akalpanim, so superficially, Zoh is lower. That's how it's plotted on the map, right? Arich, Keser, and then there's a significant Tzimtzum, and then comes Atzilus. Zeir Anpin, small faces. However, we learned Barichas that Dafke in the Zoh is the Ashpah Plimius, and the Etzem is drawn, as explained at length in the Maamar. So he says, Al derech zeh ben Toyol the Tikkun, this is a similar distinction, and it's all integrated between Toyo and Tikkun. Toyo, the chaotic matziv that precedes Tikkun. Toyo is great oiris and scant kalim. What that means is that there's great revelation, great infinite revelation, and the finite expressions of Elikus, which are the origin of us, the origin of creation, are scant and small and overwhelmed. So there's the shvira. The shvira of the kalim actually means the total insignificance of the kalim, of Gevul. And Tikkun, however, is Tikkun is bekalim. Tikkun is already on the course revealed in kalim, which means, in simple language, to a McGill student, it means godliness relating to us, to creation, engaging creation, considering creation, engaging creation, granting creation, kalim. Creation begins with kalim, with the notion of gvul, of a recipient. So granting kalim value. So the chura, so shezeu b'chinas openimish leviarach hakelim. So this is already a cause that's tailored to kalim, to otherness, to a recipient, to a kalim. And in so doing, it grants significance to the kalim. And that's, so he's saying that in granting significance and moreover engaging the pnimius with kalim, that draws on the etzem of Elikus, because therein lies the essential desire of the Eibishter, which is a relationship with us. The language of Kabbalah, it's all very literal and deceivingly simple and spatial and physical, but that's the language, which you need to divest the language of its limitation and understand the concept. So the language is great lights proportionate to the kalim, which are not great, just small. This is what was explained till now was Makiv. And that is this is Ashba with the Mashpia does not engage in the Mekabel at all. The Mashpia stays in his own world, and whatever the Mekabel gets, well, that's his good fortune. But it's not the objective or the world of the Mashpia. Says the second Tana, that's Midas Doim. It's Midas Doim because it actually allows for Klippa to be nourished. If everything else is insignificant and there's no Ashba Pnimius, so then everything, because of its significance, is present. Again, the spider in the king's palace. But it's Shebetoyu, Hayasvidis be spashtas beyeshes. Toyu, the Svidis were, to use this again, deceptive language, past, so it's no longer, it's all ongoing, it's all present, but we're using time and space and level and close and far, and all of the words that only we can relate to talk about a likus, but they're symbolic words. Then we said they're more than symbolic. Then we said that they do give rise to the end these very components of our world. But still, they are, we don't mean it with the limitations of our world. Past, present, future, closer, further, bigger, smaller, light vessel. I'll repeat it again. We don't begin to understand what we're talking about if we can't explain this to someone without using this language. To whatever degree you can explain it to him without using light and vessels, he doesn't know what you're talking about because there are no lights, no vessels. So it's symbolic. So what do you mean? So if you can't explain it, you should understand it, then we don't understand it yet. That's the challenge. That's the way you teach yourself to understand, is to compel yourself to think in your own head conceptually without just repeating words and hiding behind words. So
the Mashpia in Kfar Chabad, Gopen,
yeah,
he always verbrangs, and he says anything that you cannot bring down into a mashal, you don't understand. You have to bring everything, try to bring it into a mashal.
Yeah. Moreover, anything that you cannot apply in your own life, in the way you work and your relationships with others, then you haven't understood it either. Everything has a parallel, the nefesh adam, very personal. The marshal has to be, in other words, it's in our world, the nefesh adam, because the nefesh adam devolves, is an reflective mamish of all of these darkness, as is the world at large. The person is in the Eilam Cotton, so it exists in the Eilam Gadol and in the Eilam Cotton, in many endless manifestations, virtually. As we learned that even in the Eilam Hazeh, or Dafka Eilam Hazeh, there's Nivroim Adin Ketz, infinite creations, notwithstanding that it's a finite world. Why? Because Elikus is present and peeks through, even as it were, the physical reality of the world, granting it infinite properties, and all of the properties that exist. Lamaila spoke about the flame, the dark flame at the core, etc. This is one example. Akoponim, let's go further. So Shebetoyu, this is translating a little bit. Shebetoyu ha'esvidis b'spashtus or b'yeshus. In Toyu, the svidis are expansive and yeshus. We asked the question yesterday, yeshus, but what does this mean? The closer to God, the less yeshus. What does he mean by yeshus here? The answer is the yeshus of Elikus. Toyu means that Hashem is expressing grand attributes. And from there comes the shvira, the breaking, because everything else that is not grand is insignificant and breaks. Dismissed. And from this, the extraneous forces of Klippa get nourished, because everything is dismissed and ignored, then great. do what I want. Or as we said the other day, if a person is dismissed, he can't find his place in holiness, he's got to find pleasure somewhere. He's going to seek it elsewhere. And why is he finding it elsewhere? Dafki, because he's dismissed, because he's given up. Because he was told, what are you doing here? Someone told me a story yesterday. Someone said to another person, another chassid, in a certain situation, a certain celebration, whatever it was, what are you doing here? And that crushed him for 10 years or more, till he found this place. That's it. So you got to find fulfillment and pleasure and feel welcome somewhere. Be so careful the word that we say. 10 years. 10 years now. Mashenkein, Asvid is the tikkun. Tikkun is you count, you belong. Thirdly, you're part of this. You're the kavanah. Interesting language, Chassidus says it. In them is felt the kavanah, the divine intent in Yiddish. They haben der Herd haben gewendet zu. Translation, they, what's they? So the Kalim of Atzilus. The Herd sensed and haben gewendet and got it. What did they get? They got the big news. The Eibishter wants a relationship with Nishamis, Nishroel, Lamata, Kalim. So this is actually the Oiris talking about. The Oiris, the language can be so where you get derailed in. Because so the language of Chassidus, this is the, I mentioned this, the irony. We're talking about the Eibishter, and yet you're having Dargis as if something else, and Oiris here. The Oiris of Atzilus, the Herd Kavanah El Yoina. The next ones, as he Paul Etzlam, so because they sent the Kavanah El Yoina, this affected by them. She retained him the Kavanah El Yoina, she bottled the Kavanah El Yoina. And that's why they contracted to be the Fiat HaKelim. It like grants them some kind of independent consciousness, that they're the Herd, that they acquiesced. Okay, so this is just the language. It's the language.
Why?
And why, let me finish. Why is it such language? Why use such language? This gives a false impression that there's something other. It's revelation. Same to Herd. They got together, they realized, oh, this is it, and they, okay, we'll be in this tzamtzum, giving some sense of independence. Why do you use such language?
Maybe that he's trying to say, like in your mashal, that
I'll answer it. Okay, what do you want to say?
That the mashpia sees that the makabel really is into it, and therefore he takes into consideration the makabel, and he invests himself in it.
Fine, but the Maimon is talking to everybody. He's talking to everyone, whether one is in a role of mashpia or not. The truth is, everybody is to some degree. That's what hakel means. We all have hashpah. And not everybody is a mashpia in the primistic way. I'm suggesting here that the reason Chassidus uses this language, because he's using language that we can apply to ourselves. That we have to deadhead, we have to sense that what? That my life, Keli of Keli, limit of limit, little puny me. This is what the Eibishter wants, a relationship with me. Using language of like this, an epiphany language. because it's like an epiphany language. They on the head, which means maybe they wouldn't have, but they did. Who's the they? It's what the Oiris of Atzilus. It's a language of an epiphany, of a discovery, because that's the way it is for us. That's what it is for us, because on some level, like, it cares about me, could possibly. My life makes all the difference, little me. So it's an epiphany. He says the language we need to apply to ourselves. Yes, your life and his life and her life, yeah, that's everything. That's the whole kavanah. And therefore, continuing this language, that he pol etzlam shir b'teilim l'kavanah el yain. Because the Oid of Atzilus expresses the language of the mind, the epiphany, the head, that this is the kavanah. So therefore, the Oid itself now contains itself, as it were, and is invested in the kelim, because that's the divine intent. And to translate that in our life, it means also that the minusha, the small things of our life, the little details, the hidur mitzvah, that's negeya. Just giving one expression of that, is that in the details of the mitzvahs, we're attentive to the small detail, and relationships the same way. You know, in general terms, it can be fine. A good husband, a good wife, good father, good this, good, good rabbi. But get close up to the details, the small interactions. So that's what has to be the emphasis. However, concluding, so even though now the Oiras are getting down to the nitty-gritty of the kelim, as it were, because that's the kavanah al yoina. However, here's where the true greatness lies, and the true blikvolness, meaning the etzim, the pnimius of Elikos. So that's as the Maimon insisted at the beginning of the Maimon. It's called Zoh, small, it's less, because of the Mile of Bittul, the Bittul to the Kavanah El Yoina. In the words of the Maimon just now, the Oid of Atzilus, that had, it's the Bittul to the Kavanah El Yoina, and therefore it's misamsim itself, according to the Kelim, therefore it becomes small, literally also. But that smallness is the true greatness. That's the true blikvul, the true infinite, as it were. The etzem of Elikos is dafka where in the Oiris and Kelim in the relationship with us. Now, heads up, the Maimon would end here, we kind of would get it. And that so often happens that he gives a beer and it challenges us anew to understand the whole Indian. So lo kokach pashut, but we'll try. Memnis, he says that this is based on Ayin Bey, so which I didn't learn. Not love it. No, I don't think I got there ever. But I should have learned it through properly, think about it for many hours, and then give this year. But I didn't, so we'll struggle through it together. We try and Be'ezus Hashem to understand what he's saying. The explanation of the matter is as follows. So let's remember what the whole Maimon is talking about here. Let's explain. The Alter Rebbe, the letter Kotointi, guns blazing, he comes out, the Alter Rebbe, and is completely negates the inyan of Chesed Yishmoel. So the Rebbe explains that to me. We're not talking about Yishmoel down here, gorging himself on the makif of Kedusha. But we're talking, the Rebbe says it's a letter to Chassidim. It's a letter to Chassidim. We're talking about the Sherish and Mokir, the source of it. We're talking about the Rav Chesed. Rav Chesed, Chesed Da'adich. No, the Alter Rebbe said. It has to be Tikkun, Chesed Atzilus, and Bittul, and so on. we're getting a sense now of what that means now. And the answer, we won't repeat the questions at the end of the Maimon world that he asked at the beginning of the Maimon. So now we'll be in him. Now comes the beer. The bashbos achesed shemitzad yinayis nasos yeshnam bezifanim. So when chesed comes, now what does isnasos mean? The word isnasos means, anybody? We'll translate it. Isnasos means exaltedness.
Unengaged.
Okay, see, there is a concept that is engaged. But the isnasos, exalted, means because it's an expression, you can say on two levels, of the essential, again, grandeur of the mashpia. Coming from a deep place within the mashpia. A very deep place, an essential place. As opposed to what? As opposed to a calculated cheshbon kind of chesed. So what determines the chesed is a calculation, a cheshbon. He has whatever calculation he makes, that it's appropriate, that he gives tzedakah, that he be kind. So whatever cheshbon. That was the koiches pnimiyim, seichel. The seichel is what induces the chesed. We're not talking that. We're talking a chesed that comes as, this is, we need a little bit of background if we throw this into the equation here. The midas are rooted in the neshama and the nefesh deeper than seichel. Even though Chabad is father and mother, and we learned in Perek Gimel and Tanya that the midas are born from seichel, but they're born, they emerge. But be'emes, their source in the nefesh is deeper in seichel. So here we're talking about the chesed the way it is with tzadis nasos, not born of a cheshbon, of a calculation, but because of his own essential state. Now, he's saying that has two levels, two ways. Yesh nabei zeifan, and this is the raw atmis dike chesed, revealed when a person, certain matzavim, states in a person's life, where his neshama, his personality at the core essential level is moved and is expressed. For example, the wedding of an only child. This engages the person and expresses him from the depth of his being. And the melech, when someone becomes a king, is touched on the essence of his being. That's where Malchus is rooted. So let's just read the next two lines here. So the hashba that comes with this nasos, yeshna bezifan, hashba sachesed shemisad isnasos atzmis. Isnasos atzmis means an essential state of being. He is in touch with and expressive of himself now. Aydin seichel, at the core I am. The core I am is in a state of expression. Isnasos atzmis. Isnasos also means exalted, removed, because the I is the I am, the fundamental sovereign I. That's one. And from there, he's mashpia chesed. An example of at a wedding where he's very generous and everything opens up. And then the ashbos achesed mitzad isnasos chitzonis. And then there can also be a show of self, but it's external. It's external, and therefore there's some degree of what? Of agenda. And what is the agenda? This the pshat is here. The agenda is in the lower state to show, to express himself. He's showing, he's in a state of unbridled expression, and he wants that to be known. The objective is the self-expression. As opposed to the first level, where there's no objective, he's just in a state of essential expression, deeply moved, deeply, deeply moved. Again, the wedding of an only child, there's like an expression of that. It expresses the person, the tainuk, the delight, the pleasure at the deepest level. But the second one we're speaking about is, he's in a very expansive state, and he wants to, as it were, show himself up.
Why does that mean to be? What can it be to be played on someone else, or accomplish anything else with this hisnasus Kotointi? The goal doesn't need to be to show the hisnasus. The goal could be to accomplish.
So that's not hisnasus Kotointi. It's something else. That is a different matzah. That's a different matzah, which is induced by a cheshbon or a atzmi. Well, let's go further and see how the hisnasus atzmi is the one that really engages. The paradox. Hisnasus atzmi, where it's about his essential self without agenda, from there can be a true engagement. That if it's a hisnasus Kotointi, he wants to show he wants to express himself, and you should know it. That's where it's profoundly limited. Okay, so we'll continue that Be'ezrat Hashem next week.